It's no secret. It's plain to see. I love you, and you love me. It's no secret. You know it's true. You love me. I love you. The only time we seem to meet is in the middle of the night. Only then can I feel your heartbeat. Till something's not right. Together I see you and me, always and all time. But not everyone would agree. To them it's a crime. It's no secret. It's plain to see. Yes, I love you, and you love me. And it's no secret. You know it's true. You love me. Yes, I love you.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm just getting started here for the day, so just bear with me. Oh, where did my mic go? This is not fun. Sorry about that. My mic stand just came loose, so I'm not quite ready yet, but we're getting started. So anyhow, how's everybody's 4th of July? I hope it was well. Let's see. Nothing worse when you have technical difficulties, but that's okay. Get it all figured out. There we go. All right. There we go. I'm more set. Okay. So I'm going to be going live here in just a moment. So let's get things going. All right. Next. Let's see. Not on Facebook. Okay, that. All right. And good morning, Anthony, Mark. How you doing? So if you guys want to share the show in just here in a moment, that'd be great. All right, so let's get today started. We're going to go live. And I'll be simulcasting also on from Restream to YouTube and everywhere else you can find me. Let's see. Good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. Live producing on Restream. I'm also producing live on Fireside, Wisdom, and YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter Spaces. So how's everybody doing? It's good to be back on Rise and Grind. Today's titled Opportunity versus Obligation. You know, how are we going to turn it around? So glad to be here and talking with you all who are going to be listening to either me live or recorded. I highly encourage both, and make sure that you share with a friend. So I have not been on air last week because I just wanted to take a little bit of time for myself. I took a vacation week. I needed more time to work on the tech, learning about production, all that great stuff with podcasting. So forgive me if I've been gone a week. I'm not normally producing in my normal day. But today's Tuesday, 5th. So happy Independence Day, or the day after. And still, many of us got to celebrate yesterday for the 4th of July, and that was a great opportunity. So to get into, why are we going to talk about obligation versus opportunity? And I feel so many people feel downtrodden. They feel like they've lost hope. They're trying to figure out the pivots, career changes, family, obligations, duties, and opportunities. And where is my next opportunity? And that's what I'm exactly here to focus exactly on. And so I was reading something on July 3rd from the Daily Stoic, and it says, turn it, and it was titled, Turn Have to Get to. Now, from the great Stoic philosopher Epictetus in his Discourse 7, he says the task of the philosopher, we should bring our will into harmony with whatever happens, so that nothing happens against our will and nothing we will wish for fails to happen. Very interesting. Now, the writer, Ryan Holiday, he goes on to describe, and he says, a long to-do list seems intimidating and burdensome, and all these things we have to do in the course of the day or week. But get-to-do list sounds like a privilege. All the things we're excited about, the opportunities to experience, this isn't just semantic playing. It is a central facet of the philosopher's worldview. Today, don't try to impose your will on the world. Instead, see yourself as fortunate to receive and respond to the will in the world. What else does it say? Stuck in traffic, a few wonderful minutes to relax and sit. Your car's broke down after idling for so long. What a nice nudge to take a long walk in the rest of the way. A swerving car driven by a distracted cell phone widening idiot nearly hit you as you were walking through the soaked you had head to toe in a muddy water. What a reminder, about the precarious our existence is, and how silly it is to get upset about something as trivial as being late or having trouble with the commute. Kidding aside, it might not seem like it make a big difference to see life as something you have to do versus to get to do. But there is a huge, magnificent difference. Now, the question of the day says, what if I saw opportunities instead of obligations? And that's really the focus on today. Many of us are parents, or we're head of households. We are trying to not only manage our affairs, we're trying to manage how we're going to pay our mortgages, our rents, how we see the next opportunity. Do I have enough to get me through the month, year? Am I putting the right steps? Are the works that I'm putting forth, are they going to be outdated? These are all questions that go through many of our minds. But what if I told you that you're thinking obligation first and opportunity last? You probably might agree with me, but how do we switch it around? Now, there are many books and there's many positive speakers, influencers out there to tell you exactly to do that. To be able to turn an opportunity around instead of an obligation. I mean, you're speaking madness. Well, of course it sounds like madness, right? But are you putting time into it? Yesterday I happened to talk to a wonderful friend on Instagram, or no, not Instagram, but matter of fact, here on Fireside. And what we were talking about, she was talking about, her journaling, and we were talking about how you can um, take your journaling as a part of your processing. And the more that I talked about it, the more that I thought, you know what? I've been documenting my failures and my process and my progress all along the way, good or bad. I put it down. And as I look back and I look at those things, I'm all, how many opportunities has arisen from my obligations and from my duties, my diligence. And a lot is to be said. So first, you know, after we've read the Daily Stoic and how it's impacted, where does first let's look at where our energy goes. So I just wrote a small list for myself: family, bills, goals, duties, promises, dreams, news and updates, work or profession, drifting with tech, and sleep and eating. Now, when you have all that, how much of of that list is really about you versus others? Now, there's some that cross pollinate with each other, and there are some that are just specifically on you. But without knowing where most of your energy goes, how can you harness whatever the best of you is going to be? Right? It's a great question. So, I started looking and evaluating on my iPhone where my click time is. And I was surprised the amount of time that I'm spending in the amount of different apps and different things that I use. Now, tech can be a wonderful thing, but a it also could be like a drainer. And to me, I look at the tech that I use as a privilege. I don't think it's guaranteed to me because I do pay for this. I do pay for the access of whatever I'm going to use, right? So many of us, we think that if we can just get ahead, or if I get this next device, so on and so forth. If I do this next thing, I'll be a lot more ahead. I'll be better off. I'll have more chance for abundance, right? Excuse me. And when we think about these things, how can I really stop dreaming and look at it for what it is, right? So goes on to my next big category. Okay. So I wrote, it, but it gets overlooked. And what does that exactly mean? All these wonderful tools that we have microwaves, we have convection ovens, we have deep fryers, we have Instapots, we have cell phones, we have televisions, we have all these things. We have keyboards, even a microphone, even speaking to you right now. These are tools that I use. But when I first started getting into podcasting, did I think about making money? No, I didn't think about it. Now, did I think about turning this into a business? No, I didn't think about it. I thought, oh, well, let me get good at it and then I can turn it into a business. Well, I spent basically almost 6, 7 years learning to develop my talent. And I didn't know exactly what I was going to do with it. I just knew that I wanted to speak. But as time progressed, I was like, wait a second, I'm giving away so much for free. What about investing in myself? Which is the next big point. What kind of equity are you creating for yourself? Now, a lot of us forget about what is equity. That means what it's actually worth. When you have an equity in a home, that means what it actually retains in worth, right? So say like if you have 90% of your mortgage paid, you owed let's say $300,000 and you only have that, I don't know, maybe $280,000 of it paid off. That's the equity, right? That means the last 20,000, that is the loan, that is the interest and all that great stuff that you owe. But the equity that you actually own in place is yours. It's nobody else's. It's not the bank's. It's yours, at least allegedly, metaphorically. And anyhow, so when we look at our worth, it's like, okay, well, I've got plenty of places to kind of like spread my worth around. I've got family, I've got friends, I've got, my career, my profession. I've got all these things. And it's all amount of your energy and your attention. That's your equity, right? And so you either are going to look at everything as much as you can, or you're just going to focus exactly on the best things that you can do. Now, sounds simple enough, right? It does. honestly. But we tend to want to put the best of us on the shelf on hold at the possibilities out there. But while we're on the possibilities out there, and these are the best areas where we can develop, that we're putting on the shelf, we're looking at, like, let me see what maybe is next. Maybe I don't have to use all my energy. Maybe I don't have to use all my attention. Maybe getting involved in this platform or doing this thing, um, I can make my life a lot easier. But you forget the problems that you've been dealing with, that you've been set aside along with your equity, right? So you look at those opportunities and you're like, oh man, I definitely want to check this out. This can make my brand, my opportunity to distribute so much better. But what if I told you it's just like, wait a second, make good of what you already have before you adopt brand new? Now that seems like it's common sense. But we tend to say, no, 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 no. Look, I've got time. I'm done with work. I want to look at these things and I'll check it out. So we overlook the time that where we best can spend to develop our equity, and that means my attention, how I listen, how I speak, um, my exercise, my diet. These are all things that you have complete control over. Your thoughts and your words are really the only two things you really control, but metaphorically, you control all those other things in your realm, your choices. So when you choose to put your attention to something, that is a privilege and that's an opportunity. But when it goes to neglect, and say like you forgot a bill that you didn't pay for 2 months, 3 months, whatever it is, you're like, oh crap. And now all that interest, or there's fees and there's dues, and you're like, what did I do? Why did I do that? Because you weren't focused on the things that mattered the most. And I feel in today's world, we're so busy with everything else than the best of us. So, and how I came to this realization, I've always known it, but I've just, like so many, I've ignored it. And last week I was on vacation with my family and I didn't really hardly look at my phone. I didn't look at social media. I didn't post. I didn't get on record. I didn't do nothing. All I did was just focus on my 4-year-old, and I focused only on, my significant other. And so when I did this, it started giving me, I started feeling some withdrawals, but I was like, oh, you know what? I don't need to pay attention to all that. So then I started looking at what really mattered, my family's needs, their time, my time. We walked around, we did things, we spent time with each other. We looked at each other, and I was like, oh, you know what? And all I could hear around me in people's casual conversation was like the discussions about Roe v. Wade, the shootings that have taken place, and so many other things in politics. And not one time did any of those things, not that they don't matter, not any of those things did I let infect my presence. So I started I was like, wait a second, my opportunity is looking at my family, what I have to do with now, because by me relaxing and being with my family, it doesn't feel like it's a duty. It feels like it's a privilege. So that's the first key I would have to say about all this, of how to turn an obligation into an opportunity. So when you start looking at your family and you're relaxing with them, I'm not talking about watching just TV. I'm talking about like actually just being with them. Go outside, go for a walk, enjoy dinner, sit at the dinner table. When you look at the weekend, don't look at like all the things that you had to put on the shelf because your work takes so much of your time. Well, that's where I started looking at what mattered most. And so instead of having to mow the lawn, take care of the fence, take care of the garden, it was my attitude about what I looked at, that I get to do this. Okay, I have a home. I get to house my family. I get to make a garden. Started turning it around. So and that was the next big point of all this, you know, the process to progress. So why do we put aside, if it's so good? Because a lot of times, in my opinion, when it's going so well, we kind of relax. We don't, we don't really, it's like, okay, I did all the hard work, and I don't have to work so hard in doing it. But then when I started realizing, I was like, just like when I was in sports and athletics, all that training to get really good, you got to keep it going. You got to keep consistency, you know, and that consistency is going to feed the process for progress. And every day you make the same efforts, you keep harnessing, and you can keep doing the same thing over and over and over to where it becomes second nature. Then you know what? You've got something. But the minute you start relaxing, you start letting your thoughts drift. Insecurities, which comes in the next point, insecurity is a beacon that won't quit until you commit. And I'll repeat that again. Insecurities are a beacon that won't quit until you commit. And so that commitment makes all those thoughts where it's like you thought you had it and then you lost a step. Maybe you have to work a little harder for that repetition, that rhythm that gets you going, and it's like, okay, I'm back up to training speed. I'm back up to performance speed. I'm back up to, my attention. I looked at myself. I looked at my family. I looked at my career aspirations. I'm looking at my income. Am I saving more? Am I spending less? Am I drifting more? Am I looking at my happiness and my presentness with happiness? These are all things that matter in the long run. So at the end of it all, you're like, if you don't maintain, things start slipping and you start drifting. And I really got to I think it was Interview with the Devil, I think by Napoleon Hill. And he talks about the powers of the drifting. All things that in your attention can lead you to a drift from your purpose, from who you are, what you do. And even if you don't have your career figured out, or you don't have exactly a family plan, I didn't have a family plan figured out for myself. But if I get out of the commitment and the rhythm and the consistency of whatever I'm doing, if I get out of that, then I put things on the shelf, and then they become soon enough obligations. And it's like, oh, I've got to go pay this bill. I can't get time off. How many of us, here's a deeper question. How many of us can't take a vacation? Absolutely can't. And up until last week, I have not been able to take a vacation in 4 years. And why is that? Because I put too many things on the shelf. I'll do it later. I'll get to later. I'll save for it later. I'll have an opportunity to make it. Well, when I started realizing when I really do need a break, I couldn't take one. I had to keep up the work. Otherwise, I'd feel like I'm kind of like sinking below the water, kind of drowning. And that's not good enough. And so what I started thinking about in my own self, I was like, okay, I'm going to make a target date when I'm going to take a break. And this is a very careful and easy thing to do. Just say, okay, in this week, the last week of June, I'm going to take a week off. I'm not going to work. And in that week, I will not commit to any other distractions. No, not the fun things I get to do, not social media, not podcasting, not nothing. In that week, I will rest, relax, spend time with my family where I haven't been able to. And to get that, this is the amount of work, and this is the amount I've got to save every single time I get paid. This is what I've got to put aside. And so I just wrote it down over a year ago. I said, okay, 30% of whatever I make to cover all my bills or whatever, and extra spending money while I'm off that week will be set aside for a whole year. And it seemed like kind of like a lot at first. It was like, oh my God, I feel like I'm broke. But the more that I did it, the more that I had saved, the more that I just realized, okay, well, I'm not so eager to go binge watch Netflix. I'm not so eager to go and spend time listening to people's problems all the time. Um, my commitment is I'm going to put some investment time into my podcasting, into my career, into my exercise, into my health, into my eating. And guess what? Eventually, I started feeling better. I started dropping weight, and I kept up that, so to speak. I may be breaking up in some people's networks, but I'm simulcasting right now. So for those of you who are listening on Wisdom, my apologies. So a friend of mine just let me know. Anyhow, but the more that I got into the rhythm of saving and investing in the present for that 1 week off, I started deciding what mattered most to me. I started thinking about like, well, if I spend this amount of time fixing all these other things that are not in my possession or not in my charge, then I'm getting away from that 1 week where I get to take it off. And lo and behold, a year reached, I get that vacation time. I had more money, a lot more money. I had a lot more, I don't know, energy. I had better health. I had better concentration. I had a lot of things, and I had more money than I needed for my vacation. And I was like, okay, so what if I wanted to take 2 vacations in a year and still keep up that same momentum? Well, I started focusing and looking exactly at what mattered most. I started looking at all my distractions. I started looking at all the things that, in the beginning that I wrote down in my journal, they didn't interrupt me. And so as I looked at those things, I looked at the interruptions. And then I stopped thinking about my insecurities. Am I going to make enough? Am I making the right changes? Am I innovative? And I started looking at the things that made sense. Matter of fact, I got to give a big shout out to my good friend Sonia. And she's also, in the last 6 weeks, helped me think about being innovative and how to be creative with my own creative works as I podcast, as I vlog, as I do all that great stuff. Right. So as I'm doing this, and I'm thinking about how I can deliver my works better, guess what? That's another investment. That's creating more equity. When I looked at actually equity of what I had more than enough after a year. Now, I started thinking, the wheel started turning. Well, what if I started doing that every single year, not just for 1 week or 2 weeks or just for vacations? How will my life get better? And that comes into the commitment. This is the next big part. The commitment takes a craft, time to craft. I'll repeat that again. The commitment takes time to craft. You're going to have to get in repetition. You're going to have to get in the rhythm. Even the days you don't want to do it, you do it anyway. If you do need to rest, rest and let go. Rest to be a part of you, not everyone else's cause. Now, you may work for somebody, but remember, there are limitations. When you work for someone, you only have obligations for the time spent when you work. And that's it. You know, and that a lot of people don't understand what that means. So that's the thing is limit the outer obligations, your work. Some of your work has like things like you can't post things on social media. Don't take anything against our name, and that's fine. I don't associate my work with my leisure. When I'm at work, I'm at work. When I'm off, that's full-time investment for me. So that was like understanding the commitment, understanding drinking water, being hydrated, getting rid of the chemicals, getting rid of trying to eat clean. Where can I put better energy into better thought processes? So here is the next big point. Change the optics. That's right. Change your optics. Your optics are what you see is not always what you feel. Now, kind of tricky, right? There are things that like when I happened to watch the news this morning and I just heard about like what happened in Chicago, the shooting. It made me feel upset. But then I was like, man, that really sucks. I want to write this down and I want to think about this because it is election year. And I want to write and evaluate, laws, lobbies, and all that thing later so that when I can attend to and I make a decision at the ballot that's going to make an effect on my living where I live and maybe the nation. So, I didn't let the tragedy take me too far down. I just gave it a limited space and wrote some notes down and say, okay, I definitely want to see this is coming up way too often. And the reason why I did that was I don't let that infect my discussions for the latter. So, what I may feel about something may not be necessarily true that I can really change by being angry and whatever. But if I keep on not putting the best of me, the equity on the shelf and just capitalizing it, capitalizing on your equity, your beliefs, your health, like I said, all those great things about you that you already have, you don't have to change them. You start putting the equity in those things and you make a difference every single day. And guess what? Your presence, just like when I was saving for our vacation, I had more than enough. The consistency overall builds up and builds up and builds up. And it's like, wow, I didn't realize that I saved that much. I had more than enough. Now, my extra that and this is, I'll go back a point. My extra that I had more than enough, I took that amount of funding and the energy that I had, and I said, okay, where can I take this and properly invest it and keep consistently the hard work and the diligent work that I'm doing to make a better process. And I talked with my significant other and we talked about what we could do with the extra money. And part of it is going to charity, and then the other part is going into us for our long-term goals. So when we looked at that extra and I kept up the same amount of work, same amount of reps, exercise, go for a morning walk, look at what I'm drinking, look at what I'm eating, what am I listening to, who am I listening to, what I'm viewing, choosing not to be in arguments, choosing not to engage with things, sometimes let things pass by. Excuse me. When I was looking at those things, then I started realizing, okay, well now I've got something here. And now I have more of a position to stand my ground on what matters most. What matters most to me is my financial peace, my spiritual mental peace, and my physical peace. That means I can stand up without having pain, um, all those good things. So when I started understanding my peace has to be worked for, and it comes with that rhythm. So by changing how you look at things, after you build the momentum, after you build up the equity, you build up all those things, what you see could be changed, and how you feel about it. So now that I feel like I've built up equity, I've had my vacation, I've had rest and relaxation, now I'm ready to work. Now I'm ready to to do my absolute best for whatever client or whatever business I work with and just give them absolutely everything that I can. That's the best of me without overdoing it. That's right. You can put too much into work. I used to say the saying, be good at what you do, but don't be too good. You know, if you're always giving extra, extra becomes normal. And I learned this in when I was waiting tables. And I remember some of my managers just taking advantage of, like, I remember in the restaurant that I worked at, I would be taking 7 tables because I could, and they would have in like a long wait, sometimes an hour wait. And they're like, oh, they're already strategically planning on what I can do. But there were times where I needed a break. I needed to slow down. And then when I would tell them, they're like, well, I thought you had this. And I'm like, yeah, I was giving you always my extra. So, you know, when I looked at what all this was going on, I was like, wait a minute. So I stopped doing that, and it didn't seem so easy. Like they had to begin this discussion on my platform and the way that I do things. Now I have a guest over on Wisdom. Let's see. I'll take you on for Ellen for a few moments. Ellen, welcome to the stage here on Wisdom, as well as Restream, YouTube, Twitch, and Fireside.
Hi.
Good morning, Ellen. How you doing?
Yeah.
Hello.
Can you hear me, John?
It's Jason.
I mean, Jason.
yeah,
Jason, I'm
yeah.
sorry. I'm quick and I'm walking across the street. So
Okay. And what would you like to add?
to hear from you, Jason B.
Mm-hmm. And what would you like to add?
I was looking at what you wrote, Rise and Grind.
Mm-hmm.
Round. Give me a little more backdrop. Thinking that this is an amazing topic,
Hmm.
and just give me a little back so I can talk on topic. It sounds good to me what you're saying.
Okay, because I only have 30 minutes to do the show, Ellen, I thank you so much for coming up on stage. Um, I would suggest going back and listen because I'm getting ready to close pretty soon. So you can listen to this recorded, but I've got to stick to my timer. And when my time's up, that's when I got to go because I've got to commit to my profession. So thank you so much, Ellen, for coming on up. Just to give
Okay.
you context, what this show is particularly about is your obligations versus your opportunity. Are you looking at your opportunities or are you looking at obligations
No,
that
boy, I'm breaking up.
yeah. So thank you so much for coming up on stage. I definitely appreciate you. And let's see. There we go. There we go. All right. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. But thank you, Ellen, for coming on up. Um, and here's the thing is so that I get to build up the last point when I was like change the optics. Making so here's the next big point. Making it feel right takes your rhythm and your consistency. And I kind of touched on that a little while ago. But if you look at the amount of steps that you're taking, like I did for a year, for last week to take it off, to have that vacation time off. When I looked at the amount of steps in the beginning, I couldn't imagine what it was going to feel. I wanted to know what it was going to feel like, but it took a little bit more effort. So when I realized that I got to a certain level of high performance in everything that I do, setting aside 30% of whatever I make, putting that aside and understanding the momentum it was going to take me physically and spiritually, all those things, what it was going to take for me able to take a break. Then I started looking back after I've taken the break, I looked at, wow, I looked at my journal in the beginning and I was like, man, I was complaining about a lot. And I looked at all the things that I was ignoring. I was ignoring, what nutrition I needed. I was ignoring the exercise and getting into that rhythm of exercise, going from walking to running, lifting weights. It was a pain in the butt. I'm not going to lie. But see, that's where our minds will talk you out of doing the good things for yourselves. Whenever you're working out, you ever notice that like you get to that point of exhaustion or you gas out, that like, I can't do it no more. And that's why sometimes trainers say, well, give me that one little extra, just one more step. And that one step builds up that strength. And pretty soon that extra is your norm. So kind of like what I was talking about being a waiter, I was like, wait a second, I scaled back and I gave good, not my absolute best of all the time. You can't give it all the time. You need to be able to measure out your efforts and your optics. You got to be able to say, well, you know what, when I need to scale back, you understand we have a relationship, and that goes from your family to your workplace, everywhere, excuse me. So when we look at all these things and we can be able to scale back and look back, it's like, okay, now I know where sometimes I need to give a little extra, but not always. And I created the boundaries for that. So as I was getting into the rhythm and the consistency, guess what? Here comes the next big part. Getting over those humps. Yes. You ever feel like it's like you're driving down the street and you don't see those road bumps to slow you down? You're like, whoop, whoop, and you're like, damn it. But if you kept a slower, consistent speed, going over those speed bumps isn't so bad. But see, when we have our eyes too far ahead of the road before we actually what we see in front of us, that's where it raises our car or whatever us and we feel awkward. But that consistency, that rhythm that you feel of your hard work, to get to your destination is going to matter. That's when the humps don't become such a big deal. And that's kind of like what, Epictetus was talking about earlier. It's like the part where he says whatever happens so that nothing happens against our will and nothing that we wish for fails to happen. So it's like we sometimes have these expectations and then stuff gets in our way and we're, oh, wait a minute, I got to stop. No, you don't have to necessarily stop. You may have to pause, but you pause enough to like, okay, recalibrate. Let me take this a lot more easier and let me take more time to observe. And that also means about how you observe your problems. A lot of your problems you try to force so hard, but if you sit with your problems and you let timing and place while you're working on other things, the answer will come to you. Sometimes our egos get in the way of everything. So this is where, coming to the close, harnessing your time, your energy, and your wisdom and power. Harnessing actually everything that you can do. Like I said, you built up all that rhythm. Like I said, I took a year. I had extra. I had more than I needed. I had more energy. I had more mental space. I had more money. I had more things. And then I started looking about how I get to do things. When I started looking at what I get to do versus what I have to do, what I have to do is very minute, very small percentage of my life. And I had more available mental space with the people that mattered the most to me. But I also had to remember all that abundance I had to give back. And that's what I do when I podcast. When I come on the air, I'm giving back, to people as well as I invest. So when I look at, here's the big thing about how to harness your time, your energy, your wisdom, and your power. Learn it through. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities that are going to come your way. Once you've gotten your rhythm and your consistency, there's going to be things like, oh, I got this. Don't worry about it. Right. That's awesome. But make sure that you learn it all the way through, because you could be overlooking steps like, oh, I'm skipping ahead. But by skipping your rhythm and your consistency, you may be overlooking what crafts your experience and what crafts who you are. So, and it's not always here's the next key, making sense later. It doesn't all make sense later until you're in the ladder. It's like, okay, I've got to go up a mile hill and it's a pretty steep grade. I don't understand. I want to get there. I've talked about wanting to see those sights up there, but that work, all I got to put, just finish it through. Even if you screw up, finish it through. Make sense later. Learn it whatever you've got to do, learn whatever the lesson is, get all the way through it. And here's the next part. Use what is available. Now, I really think that this is something that is so overlooked in turning obligations into opportunities, or your opportunities, vice versa. We don't look at what we already have because it doesn't have relevance until we lose. That's many of us. But if you look at what you already have, make it better, craft it to be a great experience, craft it to be something very useful at any given time. It could be your decision making. It could be the way that you listen. It could be the way that you talk. It could be the way that you work out. Whatever it is, use what is available to make it better. Now, there's nothing wrong with taking risks. I'm not saying that. But if you're taking over a risk, say like playing at a blackjack table, and you think that you're going to beat the dealer, well, guess what? You got something wrong with you. Manage what you can lose, but also be in the optics of where you can see the field. Like, you know what? Maybe I don't need to be at this table. Maybe I'm only going to gamble $50 today. And $50 is my possible risk. And I'm going to see it through and not a guess. I'm going to see it through and I can enjoy, I can lose it and it's not going to hurt too bad. And sometimes, sometimes it's going to win big, but manage your risks by looking at what you already have. If it takes all of what you have, is it really worth you risking? Now, some people and motivational speakers, they'll say, well, yeah, sometimes you got to risk it all. And I have to ask a lot of those people saying that, and I ask them, I've got a question about you. If you're risking everything, then what are you really worth? Simple as that. So when you're looking at, as I come to a close, and looking at your opportunity versus your obligations go hand in hand with your opportunities. There is a cost. You want, you got to give. It's that simple. Laws of attraction talks about it all the time. If you want to manifest something, you want something great, you can feel it, you've got to understand the cost of all of this. And if you don't understand the cost, maybe you should take some more time before you press the go button or decide to go forward. Look at it, evaluate it. Not about how hard it's going to be, but look at about actually what it is for what you understand. And there's a lot of things that we don't understand. Anyhow, well, that's coming to a close. I just want to say thank you so much to all those who have come in to listen to me live over on the fireside. Thanks. I appreciate you, Sonia, Trinity, Michaels. Oh, I haven't talked to him in a long time. Mark Malhab, thank you. Excuse me so much for coming in. As far as, let's see, anyone else, I haven't really seen no chatters, but over on Wisdom, thank you, Dr. Rao. Thank you so much for coming in. Todd Martin, I've got Ismail. Thank you so much. Ellen, thank you for coming up on stage. I'm sorry I couldn't really stop to explain more, but that was an opportunity for me to continue to go through. So if you're going to come up on my stage, make sure that you give an addition. And if you need me to reset, I would suggest go back and listen to the recording. That'd be probably greater. But, that's not pointing at just one person. It's really going across the board. Sharente, thank you so much. Simon, who else? Sonia's been in here. Yeah. Let's see. Jordan, Donna Williams, MT. I've got so many people over on Wisdom. Thank you for coming out. And I do appreciate your support. Well, anyhow, that's all the time that I have for Rise and Grind. And I probably will be back. I'm going to have to say in maybe probably 2 days. So, as a matter of fact, I'm getting over a cold. So I'm trying to get over that. But anyhow, thank you so much for coming out. We'll see you all next time on Rise and Grind.